Sorry guys, we were away for a second. But we are here. We are back and better than ever. And we have a pretty fun episode planned for you today.
Yes, I'm very excited about this one. Also, I can hear your voice through the headphones again. That hasn't happened.
Really? Okay, that hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, it hasn't.
Slay.
But I was gonna say, yes, it's been a while because first it was the Thursday before Thanksgiving break.
Yeah.
And Lee was very tired, which is honestly understandable. Worked out. I probably should have been packing at that point because I was leaving the next day.
Yeah.
So it gave me a little
I
extra time.
had a terrible travel home as well after that, so I needed that night to I guess mentally prepare in a sense.
Do we want to start? Do you want to tell the story of your travel home? That'd be a fun way to start. I think we started early. We have a little extra
Yeah,
time.
I mean, we
have,
can talk about it.
Yeah, I think you
Um
should tell everyone because it's like comically bad.
it is comically bad.
Cartoonishly absurd.
It is really bad. So I live 5 hours away from campus here at Fredonia. And so I had to take 3 buses home. I took one.
Lot.
It was a lot. I had to take one from Fredonia to Buffalo, Buffalo to Syracuse, Syracuse back home to where I live. It was a really long day, and I got on the bus at 9 on Friday morning. I only had one class, so I talked to my professor, and he was okay with me not being there because it was such a long ride. But that bus decided not to tell us what stops we were making. And so when we got to Buffalo, I knew we were in Buffalo because of the signs, but I didn't know where we were in Buffalo. So I looked at the person next to me and asked, if we were at the Buffalo station. And he said we were. So I made the mistake of getting off said bus.
No. Did you have like a lot of luggage too?
Sorry, it's my alarm.
It's okay.
I had a duffel bag and a backpack.
Okay, so not too bad.
Not too bad, but enough that it was no bueno for the moments that were about to follow.
Yeah.
I got off at the train station and not the bus station, which is what I needed. So I had to walk 3 blocks through the pouring rain in my sandals. And like the sidewalks were flooding, and I was walking through it. It was splashing all over me. My shoes, like my leather sandals, were completely ruined. And I was wearing sandals because they're a good travel shoe in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they are.
I like to be able to slip my shoes off and like curl up in a ball. Like that's just how I sit when I'm traveling.
That's so real.
And so they were soaked, and I had to ask a police officer. There was this cop car pulled over, and I walked up to him. I kind of waved at him to get his attention, and he directed me where to go. This guy had like a handlebar mustache and everything. He was just kind of like, "Oh, it's 3 blocks that way."
I mean,
just
you think
keep
he would have been
walking."
like, "Hey, do you need a ride, kid?" But
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently not. He had better things to do.
Literally, I'm just like this young adult wandering in Buffalo where I've never been. It's pouring rain outside, and I was just like, "Where am I supposed to go?" And it was 3 blocks away. I had 10 minutes till my bus. So I was running there. It was no bueno. And then a car decided to hit a turn, and I got completely doused in puddle water in the middle of Buffalo.
That's so mean. That's so mean. Well, maybe it wasn't on purpose.
It might not have been on purpose, but I almost, like, the minute it happened, the minute they hit the corner, I was like, if this is about to happen to me, I'm going to cry, and then it just douses me. And I couldn't stop. I just had to keep walking. Moral of the story, or I guess end of the story, long story short, that's what I was looking for. I ended up in the bus station. I got on my bus and was dripping wet as the guy was checking my ticket. And I had to try to change my shoes on the bus. And I was on the verge of a panic attack because I just was so anxious and was not excited. And I still had 2 bus switches to do after that. So it was
Did the other ones go smoothly at least?
Yes, they went a lot smoother. So that's good. I was just shaken up after that.
Yeah.
But I made it home.
Yeah, I'm very glad to see that you made it home and then back to campus in one piece.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It was an interesting experience.
Yeah, because I remember I was texting you and I was like, "Hey, good luck on your bus ride in the morning." And at one point I texted or something. I think you texted me because I'd been checking in, been like, "Hey, how's it going? If you get bored, I can send you random videos I think they're funny or something." And you just sent me a wall of text. I'm like, "Oh, let's see what's oh
yeah.
my god."
Yeah. Well, it's because you said
shocking.
You were imagine it as a fun adventure.
Yeah.
And I was
you're
I just
a wizard going on a quest.
Yeah, and I was like, this is the quest I just endured. It was only 10 minutes long, but it felt like an hour of my life.
Oh yeah.
It was just I've also never been to Buffalo by myself. I'm not from the city. I'm not from around here. So I'm wandering through a city that I don't
scary.
know.
I would be shaking in my boots. Shiver me timbers.
And there was when I got to the bus station too, there was just this group of 5 or 6 people, all they weren't together, they weren't interacting with one another, but they were all doing illegal things.
Oh.
And with drugs. Oh, know. And I was terrified for a second because I wasn't expecting that. It was just kind of
that's fair.
a culture shock to me as a person from a really small town.
Yeah.
And that goes to a decently closed off campus. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have like a really big campus with all these different like people like that aren't from the
like
school coming in.
Cities are very different environments.
Yeah.
But I think the type of towns that we both grew up in, it's very
exactly.
But it's fun. It's fun. I like the city.
But that ties back into Stranger Things because then you have this small town.
Well, exactly. And I was gonna say, do we want to say the thing before the episode?
Yes, we can.
Which was, we just wanted to acknowledge that I learned earlier this evening, so one of my friends messaged me about it. I didn't know anything about this. There is a boycott of Stranger Things going on because of some pretty bad things that Noah Schnapp has said and done in regards to the Israel-Palestine conflict. And we just wanted to acknowledge that and say we don't agree with anything that Noah Schnapp has said. And I don't want to speak for you. I don't agree with anything he said.
I don't either.
And I also don't really agree with the fact that I understand he's an integral part of the show. I don't agree with the fact that he seems to be facing no repercussions.
Exactly.
As a result of the things that he said. But yeah, we just wanted to acknowledge that because we just didn't want to gloss it over. Because we are going to have a whole episode dedicated to controversies.
Yeah, we were already planning
in the near future. That I don't want to say for certain. That might be next week's episode. We don't know. We don't know what we're doing. Because that'll be the last episode before winter break, and then no more peculiar happenings until spring. So sad. Unless I build a radio tower in my backyard or something.
As you should.
We pull a Dustin circa season 3.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Dude. We could do a whole
winter project.
Winter project.
Oh my gosh.
But you can find our content on our Peculiar Happenings podcast Instagram.
Peculiar Happenings _ podcast.
That's what we just made it. We have 2 introductory posts for each of us, and then you can see some information about the first 4 episodes if you haven't caught up with those, where to find them, and we'll have some really fun content with Dan, our Demogorgon.
He's a little mascot.
Exactly.
He's a little mascot.
Exactly. But yeah, we wanted to preface that before.
Yes.
It's one of those things, in my opinion, it's very similar to the, not very similar, but the idea of like J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter.
Yes.
Where you can like the media, but not support
anything that some of the people involved
have done.
Exactly.
And so I will continue with this episode, but we will acknowledge it later on. But we just wanted to like preface that because Shelby just found out. Shelby just told me. I didn't hear anything about it before.
Before we started doing the episode, I was like, Lee, by the way, one of my friends mentioned this. And I do want to clarify, I'm not just going off the word of my friend. I did my own research. Yeah. There's literally a whole part on his Wikipedia page about it. Which,
Interesting.
I mean, of course, everyone's like, I don't trust Wikipedia. It's like, it's fairly reliable.
I do use Wikipedia for some things.
Because even if, the fact that anyone can edit it, whatever, if they have their sources cited, you can trace the sources back.
Yeah.
And then that takes like 2 extra seconds, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's a good skill to have to do that because there's so many things like if it's a reliable source, it will have its other sources listed because you're supposed to with a lot of things like that, or else you're copywriting and everything. And so you can easily trace back those like sources and can find all the information.
Oh yeah. And I was gonna say it wasn't even just Wikipedia too. The first thing, like literally the first 4 things that come up on Google when you type out Noah Schnapp is like Noah Schnapp controversy, Noah Schnapp like backlash.
Oh my goodness.
It's
stuff
like,
spreads like wildfire these days. It's crazy.
Double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword.
I know. It's disappointing though to figure stuff out like that where you want to put faith, but the reality is you don't know these people, you don't know their personal beliefs or anything about them, and so when something like this comes out, it kind of changes that view of them, which is disappointing.
And I feel like in some cases, like the higher up you put people on a pedestal, like the more you're like, oh, this person can do no wrong, the worse that makes the fall. Like the one thing I think of, the thing that happened with like the Try Guys recently.
Oh yeah.
Where there was like the one guy, Ned, was it Ned? I don't know anything about the Try Guys, but I knew about this whole thing. And I was like,
don't remember his name, but I followed the Try Guys and watched some of their stuff before everything, and then someone else told me about it. And now they only have one guy who's consistently on the Try Guys now, and there's 3 of them, but one of them, the one with the glasses, you know the one I'm talking about.
I think his name was Ned because his whole thing was everyone that was a fan of the Try Guys was like, oh, he's the wife guy. He loves his wife so much, and then you'll never guess what happened. He cheated on his wife.
Guys, he cheated on his wife.
Never guess what happened.
Oh my goodness.
And I feel like that I feel like we're getting really off track here, but I do feel like that's an example of
Yeah, exactly.
the higher up you put them on a pedestal, the harder the fall.
Exactly. And I think even though obviously this is taking out of time from the planned show we had, I think it's a good thing to talk about and preface. And just talking about different examples, because there's so many times when something like this happens and you want to talk about it, but like we talked about before, it was kind of like us changing our episode wouldn't necessarily do anything about it.
Yeah.
Because I think the only people that necessarily listen all the time
Are,
is
like,
your
our
parents
friends and my parents.
and then us and our friends.
And my one online friend Mo, who is currently listening from Washington or
I love them already.
Somewhere in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
Is where my dear friend Mo is.
I love Mo already.
Mo, if you're listening, shout out. We love you, King.
Shout out Mo.
Shout out to Mo.
I love them.
This is just the Mo podcast now.
This is the Mo podcast. That's all it's about. I don't know.
Sorry, guys. No more Stranger Things. It's just about my one friend, Mo.
The singular friend.
Yes. Anyway, today's episode is actually about Robin and Eddie. We don't have a clever little name for it yet, like the Steve Special or the Nancy News Report. We'll come up with something.
We'll come up with something.
That's a later in this week problem.
Yeah. This is our fruity duo.
Yes.
Even though Eddie's not necessarily fruity, but in my mind he is.
It's our sort of like alternative duo, because these are the two characters that specifically have strongly rooted identities and like characters rooted in the fact that they're sort of different. Set aside from the rest. So let's start with Robin. I love Robin. Robin is my favorite character.
She's one of my favorites. I love her. Just everything about her. She comes into the show and she's like a breath of fresh air.
Yes,
she really is. It's just she adds a different layer to the show.
Yes, because we do have a lot of fantastically well-rounded female characters. We've got Max, we've got Elle, we've got Nancy, but Nancy's really sort of the older female character we have. Because, you know, it's like there's the two different groups I think of. We've got the group with like the kids, like the party. Yeah. With like Dustin and Will and Mike and Lucas. Yeah. And then you've got like the teenagers, which is Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan.
Yeah. And then young adults, because it's so crazy to see them like change from that, like their high school, and then all of a sudden, they're young adults and they're looking for jobs, going to college. But Robin kind of adds with that, and then Eddie later on.
She adds an interesting new dynamic.
She does. She does.
Especially in season 4, but we'll get into that. Let's start with season 3.
Season 3, because that's when she comes into the show. That's her entrance.
Yes. And I feel like her character is vastly different from season 3 and 4, but it makes sense. Because if you think about it, season 3, for at least a partial amount of the season, I mean, she's kind of friends with Steve, but kind of in the way that, like, you're friends with your coworkers. Yeah. Like, I don't think they're, like, hanging out outside of Scoops Ahoy.
Yeah, definitely not yet.
But
they might eventually. Yeah.
They get along. They don't hate each other. Most of their interactions consist of her bullying Steve for his complete and utter lack of game.
Yes,
which is real. I always forget she became a meme. She did. With her whiteboard. With her whiteboard.
I love that for her. So many Stranger Things memes, especially after once season 3 came out, everyone took that and they ran with it. And as they should. As they absolutely should. It's funny because you know how we were talking about watching season 3. I went home and my mom's on season 3 right now.
Oh, it's perfect.
So I watched I think I watched 2 episodes with her. And the one episode was when in our sheet that we have like written down was when she solves the riddle. And it shows her, and I love that scene. I forgot how much I love that early Robin arc.
I do love that, because that's the way she's introduced. Yeah, and she's brought in more. Is she's an incredibly intelligent character. Exactly. She's very classic, sort of book smarts. I feel like Nancy is book smart, but she's also street smart, as we've talked about. Nancy with the 9 every season.
She's the bad bee.
Yeah, she's the bad bee. And then I feel like I don't know. I love Robin. I love the dynamic of like the sort of like the nerd being best friends with, like, you know, Steve Harrington, who peaked in high school.
Exactly, because Steve, like we were talking about the whole pedestal at the beginning of the episode, not related to this aspect of Stranger Things, but I feel like Steve was on a pedestal for a long time. Yeah. And then he fell off of it.
And now he's trying to figure out who he is.
Exactly.
He's trying to figure out what to do with the view of the world from down here.
Yeah. And I think Dustin also really helps him with that, starting in season 2 and then bringing it into season 3. Yes. The trio, and actually the 4 of them, when Erica comes
Dustin,
in. Oh,
Erica. We need to have an
Erica.
episode with like side characters. We can
Yes,
talk about
we
Erica
do.
because I love Erica.
She's great. She deserves
Stranger
so
Things
much.
never misses with the female characters.
They never do.
So well.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
And you just it's so refreshing because like we've talked about before with 80s media,
Yes.
and obviously this wasn't made in the 80s, but
No.
it's made to
it's set in there.
Exactly. It's representing that.
With the 80s.
Exactly. And so you have this media that's now set in the 80s that doesn't go with necessarily all of the stereotypes of an 80s media.
Yes.
And so it just makes it so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. But I think it's interesting that when they first bring Robin's character in, it's the insinuation of the potential romance between her and Steve.
Because I remember I was watching a compilation of like Steve and Robin moments from season 3 earlier today. Just for fun. I've been really excited about this episode. Just getting into the mood for the episode.
Yeah.
And there's the scene where it's like they're spying on like the Russian guards on the roof and it's raining and they almost get caught and they get really scared and they're holding hands. And I remember when I was watching season 3, the build up to the scene in the bathroom. We're taking a bit of a time jump here to the scene in the bathroom where Robin comes out.
We'll loop back.
I was feeling like a palpable dread because I was like, oh, no, they're going to go the classic romance route with it. They're such good friends. And then it completely threw me for a loop, and I was like, what?
It totally 360s.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think the reason you thought that it would be romance, and I did too watching it, was because they, at the beginning of the season, they hint that Dustin's like, well, you have this really nice person right here. You should definitely go for her. Robin's really cool.
Because that is the
Robin
way.
is cool.
Yes,
so
Robin is cool. That's absolutely the way they set it up, I think. It's because Steve keeps trying to go after the kind of girls he would always go after in high school. Maybe he doesn't even necessarily. Maybe that's not even necessarily his type.
Nope.
But that's what he's used to going after. And then you have Dustin being like, "Hey, have you considered? It doesn't have to be like that. There's this other girl right here who's like perfect." And he's like, "Huh? You know what? You're right."
Exactly.
And I think it's a good moment of realization for him. And I think it's a good moment of sort of development of him being like, you know what? Maybe I don't always have to go after the popular girls. But the dread I felt in my heart,
dread.
I was like, oh no, not again. Because even at this point, I was like, Steve just needs to calm down and figure out who he is outside of a relationship. He needs to figure out like how to be okay on his own.
Yeah.
Because like, and that's why I don't like them trying to rekindle Steve and Nancy season 4. As much as it makes sense, I don't like it. But I was like, oh no, it's here we go. And then Robin was like, I wanted her to look at me like that, and I was like,
it's so
it was
funny.
the most like unexpected thing I think I'd ever witnessed in television. They threw me for a complete loop. They set it up completely. You know how people say like in shows there's queer baiting?
Yeah.
They straight baited people.
They straight
with
baited
Robin
people.
and Steve.
That's
they
beautiful.
made them think they were gonna be a straight couple, and they're like, no,
they really
actually,
do.
she's a lesbian.
Like,
and I was like, oh my
actually,
god, yay!
I think it's really funny because when I was watching it for the first time, which when I was watching it was late 10th grade, so I was like 16 at the time, watching it for the first time, and as I was sitting there, I was like, Steve, I was not expecting it at all, and not in the way of like, at the time, I'm from a small town, I'm from a very close-minded town, and I didn't really know of the world in that sense, and I didn't even know that I identified as queer. So then I was sitting here watching this show, and at first, like, you know how his face is kind of confused? I was that too.
You can see the loading sign, and then the little light bulb go like, ding.
That's exactly what happened to me watching it. I was so confused.
You're like, what? What does it mean?
What does it mean?
What?
And then it goes, it's like that meme where it's like the girl staring off into space, and there's all like the math symbols around her, just like
she's like doing the math, like, what? 1 plus 1 equals 2.
3? What?
Yeah.
It was a good episode. I'm so excited for my mom to see that one specifically.
Oh, that was such a good episode.
It's so good. So good.
It was incredible because again, like I said, you know when you're watching a film and you've got two characters of the opposite gender, and you can tell just because of the fact that they're the opposite gender, they're gonna end up together.
Yeah.
I'll be watching a movie or show something, I'll be like, oh god, here we go again. That's how I felt watching that episode. And then they threw me for a complete loop, and I have never been more delighted in my entire life.
I've never been happier with a show franchise
I know.
that could have messed up terribly and people could have been
Yes.
so mad.
Yes.
But they made people 10 times happier with the
Yes,
character.
because they originally were going to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And then Maya Hawke, the actress for Robin, was like, actually, I have a better idea, guys.
Actually,
and thank God she did.
Actually, my character's really queer coded.
Yes, exactly. And the way the scene was handled too. I think we already talked about this in the Steve special.
Yeah, but
the way it was handled too, it was very grounded in reality.
Mhm.
It was done in a way that felt like that's how it would have actually happened. Because I feel like sometimes in some shows, for the sake of like having the phrasing right or having things be super cohesive or clear, they say things in a way that it's like that's not how actual people talk.
Yeah.
This felt like an actual genuine interaction between these two people.
It really did. And I think
These two characters.
The beauty of how the episode was done, like the scene specifically, the way they shot it was the two of them being in different stalls. And obviously, they're on this truth serum. They are drugged out of their minds right now. They're
just
tripping.
everything.
Oh, so bad. And just that whole compilation of them sitting in the bathroom, or even that whole lead up of them getting to the bathroom and then sitting there is
watching Back to the Future.
So good.
That was
so
fun.
good.
That was so fun.
I have a thing about that actually, but for later.
Okay,
But I'll finish my thought
Finish
first.
Thought, and then I want to hear.
Just that whole scene was done so well. And like you said, it feels like a genuine conversation. And I like too that they never have her really say like, "Oh, Steve, I'm a lesbian."
Yeah.
They don't say it. They're just like, "Steve."
She might not have known about that label at the time. This is Hawkins, Indiana,
exactly.
in like 1984 or 85. I forget what year. I'm inclined.
I think
84. I'm inclined to say, because 86 is season 4.
Yeah. No, is it 85?
No, sorry. Season 4 is 1986 because it's 1986. Eddie's like my year.
Yes.
So then that means if this is the summer before that, 1985. It's
1985. That.
So I was gonna say she might not have had that term at that time. I mean, it's 1985. She might not have had that knowledge or that language because I mean, I was gonna say what are the odds? You know, again, like we've said, Indiana, Hawkins, Indiana, small town in the 80s, and she doesn't have the internet either. She can't just Google stuff like we were able to.
Yeah, because it's July 3rd, 85, which makes sense because it was opening night. Because I'm pretty sure the night most of that was happening, or maybe the night after was 4th of July.
Because the whole big part of season 3, 4th of July.
4th of July.
I love that season.
My fun little fact, off topic, but fun little fact about season 3 is Michael J. Fox, obviously, who was in Back to the Future.
Oh, wait, I think I know this one.
Yeah. When at the end of the season, when they're interviewing to work at the the what do you call it?
The video rental.
Video rental. I went to say record store, and I was like, it's not a record store.
At the Blockbuster video.
Exactly. When the guy asks what his favorite movies are, he goes, "Oh, and that one movie where Alex P. Keaton tries to sleep with his mom." And Alex P. Keaton is a character that Michael J. Fox plays in a show called Family Ties, and that was the first show he was ever in, and so it was a reference to the actor, but
in the
as
wrong
one of his
franchise.
Yeah. And I just thought that was interesting because I watched Family Ties with my family, and I watched Stranger Things. I watched it after I watched it the first time, but I rewatched the season with my sister in I think 2021. And once after I rewatched it, the joke hit me, and I realized that a lot of people wouldn't notice that because it was kind of
a deep cut.
It is.
That people who are alive at the time would have gotten it, but people our age, we were like, wonder what that's about.
I wonder what you mean by that. But it's the joke, and also he thinks that he was trying to sleep with his mom because it's the mom who's trying to sleep with him.
Yes.
But they were so drugged out of their mind they weren't actually paying attention to what was happening.
They got it all mixed up. The mayor in season 3 is also played by a famous actor. I forget who.
Oh yeah,
he's my mom mentioned that
the movie with Princess Buttercup.
Oh my gosh, The Princess Bride.
Princess Bride.
I love The Princess
Bride.
Yes,
he's the.
Have you seen The Princess Bride?
I have. Don't worry, I love that movie.
It's one of my favorite movies.
It's so good.
And we're getting really off topic, but Princess Bride is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it right now. Under threat from me.
You have to go watch it right now, or else Peculiar Happenings is gonna watch it with you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk your ear off.
We're gonna appear at your doorstep and be like, hey, It's Shelby and Lee from Peculiar Happenings. We're watching The Princess Bride.
We're gonna talk the whole
We've
time.
discovered the secret to teleportation. We're abusing it.
Yeah.
No, but what were we saying? Okay, back to
back to Robin.
Back to Robin. Let's get back on track. Back to Robin, because I was gonna say again, the fact that she didn't like just outright say I'm a lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
She might not have had that language or knowledge at that time.
Yeah.
Even if she did, that's still a very hard thing to say.
A very scary thing to say.
It's a scary thing to say because there's some small part of you that's like, if I say it, that makes it real. And I don't really want it to be real. Maybe if I pretend hard enough, it's not.
Yeah.
And I feel like that came into play here. And I think also, as far as we know, Steve is the first person Robin has come out to.
Exactly. And the reality is she didn't even know Steve that well at the time.
No.
They were only coworkers.
It was the drugs and the trauma bonding that did it.
Exactly. And that's why I love Robin too. The fact that she had no idea any of this was going on, yet she still got involved.
Still like, all right, fellas, let me decode this stuff.
Let me decode this Russian message.
You guys are obviously too stupid to be dealing with this. Give it to me.
And the fact that there's these Russian guys outside of the mall with these massive guns sitting there. And
that part is very cartoonish.
She stayed involved.
Like, I know. Sorry, at that point I would have been like, nope, you guys have fun.
Bye guys. I'm gonna go cry now because
I'm gonna go cry in a dark room.
Someone's gonna come knock on my door and attack
5 hours. No, but I was gonna say, I feel like that tells us a lot about her character though, because
it really does.
She's very curious. I feel like she's very curious. She wants to know what's going on. And some silly little thing like some dudes with machine guns isn't gonna stop her.
No.
She's better than that. She's stronger.
She's gonna run through those doors and she's gonna take them down with her fists.
Yeah.
She's gonna punch some guys.
Yeah. Well, technically Steve did that, but
then he got beat up too.
And he got beat up. But he won his first fight.
He did.
In all of the seasons. In all the
seasons
he did beat up real bad.
He did.
Yes.
Slay Steve. I watched this one video and I talked about it before about how I watched a couple compilations of the cast watching scenes that they had filmed and talked about like behind the scenes stuff. And it was one interview with Maya Hawke, Joe Keery, and Gaten Matarazzo. And they were talking about that scene when they first get down to the Russian base. And in the elevator. About it all. Yeah.
That's
fun.
And
it was just fun to like hear them talk about it. And then they watched the fight scene, I think, with Steve. And they were like, he won his first fight.
Yeah. I love that.
I love that the actors have a great dynamic too, but that's a whole other conversation.
I always think the one video you talked about where it's like Joe Keery, Natalia Dyer, and the actor that plays Jonathan in an elevator. And it's like playing on the love triangle, and Natalia's like looking at both of them, like,
yep. And then
which one of you guys is gonna kiss me? And they just both, and then the guys are kissing. That was fun. I like that.
I love that one.
That was so silly, goofy.
It really was.
Yes, I was gonna say, season 3 Robin is moving on to season 4. I feel like season 3 Robin, we get a much more sort of put together image of Robin.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously she doesn't know these people very well. She's just kind of been dragged into the situation. She's basically with her coworker. She's not gonna, if I had a job, I would not be acting the same way I would with like you and like my best friends with my coworkers.
Exactly.
So I feel like season 4, that's where we get to see some more of the real Robin. We get some more of her personality developed. Yeah. She's very much a ADHD girly.
She's really
an
is.
ADHD girly, kind
She
of
really
all over the
is.
place, a little silly, still very intelligent.
Yeah,
but
we get to see more of her other than her intelligence, because we already saw a really big part of that. And now we get to see her kind of silly, goofy band nerd side of herself. Her social anxiety side of it.
Her complete lack of street smarts.
Exactly. And I love that for her. And I think the dynamics between season 3 and season 4 are great, because obviously we see a different side of her too, because like you said, she's with her coworker, she's with her coworker's weird little friend, and then the annoying kid who keeps asking for free samples at the mall that she works at. And so it's obviously like gonna be so different, but then you see the comfort level change with, I think does she interact with Erica in season 4? I don't think they really have a lot of interaction.
So. Erica doesn't really have too much screen time outside of when she fills in for Lucas at the campaign, which, dude, I'm sorry. If I was in a D&D campaign and I couldn't make it and someone had my brother fill in for me,
I would cry.
I was going to say, I would, like, hit him over the head with a shovel. But
you would knock his other tooth out.
Yeah, I would kick another one of his teeth out.
I love that.
Yeah, but,
sorry, Logan.
Yeah, sorry, Logan. He's not going to hear this.
Yeah.
So, hey, because he won't be hearing this, I'm not sorry, Logan. I would do it again. Yeah, no, yeah, but I was gonna say we see more of her personality. We see more of her fashion sense because season 3.
So
We
good.
talked about this with Steve. We've mentioned this before. We
Yes.
talked about Robin a lot because we love Robin.
Love Robin.
Because season 3, it's only the Scoop Troop outfit, which is
It
iconic,
really is.
and it works really well for Robin.
Yeah.
Honestly, like it
It's
doesn't look
slayed.
as bad as you think it would.
It's slayed with her
surprising.
chain necklaces
Yes,
and her makeup.
It's kind of a
so
serve.
good.
It's kind of a serve.
It
And in
is.
season 4, we see some more of her outfits. My personal favorite, I like the one when she's at like the video rental, where it's like the jacket with like the pins and like the button up and the tie. That is snazzy.
The suspenders.
Snazzy. Yes, the
So
suspenders
good.
and like the plaid button up
Ugh,
shirt.
So
Absolute
good.
banger. I also like the one where it's like the black shirt and it's got like, you know, the V with
Yep.
like the dots, and she's
Yep.
got like the oversized like Hawaiian shirt over it.
Yeah.
That's gay culture
It's-
right there,
It's
fellas.
so iconic. The fact that no one would look at her and just know that woman is a
It's
lesbian.
1985.
I know, but it's just like sitting here in 2023. I look at her and I just know that.
To be
woman
fair,
is
also
gay.
everyone else around her is like straight. They don't got the gaydar.
No, they don't. That's so true. The only people that know are Steve.
Steve.
Is Steve, not our Steve.
We love
Is Steve. He's the singular person we know, and we were going to talk about. We don't know her parents. We don't know her relationship with them, and maybe
the only thing we really know about her family is that like she's poor, and that's why she doesn't have a driver's license.
And there's potential that maybe her relationship isn't good with her parents because if she's relying on Steve to drive her to school every day, and she's hanging out with him so much, and she's working on on the side to save money, there's could be potential that she doesn't have a good relationship with them. But we don't get to see that. Just like we
maybe
don't.
that'll
with
be
Steve's
explored in
family
season
too.
5.
Maybe.
Maybe. But I was gonna say also season 4 is nice because in season 3 Robin was the new one introduced to the group. Robin's the one that's kind of like, oh my god, what is going on? This is so strange. But in season 4, that's Eddie's role.
Yes.
Because I remember there's the ones, I think there's the one scene where they're in the boathouse like talking to Eddie that I always think of, where Eddie's like, what? Oh my god, what are you guys talking about? This is crazy. And Robin's like, oh no, it's fine. We've dealt with this before. We'll handle it. We'll handle it. She's
so
used
nonchalant.
To it. Yes, nonchalant is exactly the word.
She's it's fine. We'll take down this other dimensional being that's come back for the 4th time now.
She's like, we'll figure it out, man. Don't worry about it.
It's fine. You stay here. We'll figure out everything with your
just eat your SpaghettiOs. Don't worry about it.
We'll deal with the murder.
Yeah.
We'll deal with all the accusations. It's fine. You stay in this boathouse.
Because I was gonna say season 3 too. Here, I'm looking at our lovely paper.
Yes. Our notes.
Our notes, which you have to write because my handwriting is so.
I hope you can read my handwriting.
Oh, absolutely! Your handwriting is so nice, dude. It's so comprehensive. Have you seen my handwriting?
I have not actually.
Barely legible. Not as bad as my brother's. My brother basically writes in like cuneiform. It's like
just like a squiggle.
It's like hieroglyphics, man. But
that's so real.
Yes, season 4. Okay. I was gonna say in each season she has her moment of intelligence. Season 3 with like the breaking of the code, and then season 4. Because another thing, let's talk about Robin and Nancy. I love Robin and Nancy.
What a duo. What an unexpected duo.
It's such an unexpected duo. Words. It's such. Sometimes I get too excited and the words don't work very well.
That's okay, same.
It's such an unexpected duo because I think, as we talked about, when they start out, Nancy is definitely sort of, I think, cautious. She might be a little jealous of Robin because this is someone who's like a young woman who's close to Steve.
Yeah.
And you can see that causes a little bit of tension. Maybe she thinks, because again, maybe she thinks they're romantically involved. Maybe she thinks Steve has replaced her.
I was just going to say that. It would make a lot of sense if Nancy thought that because she's sitting here seeing this person who's really close with Steve, who's doing the things that maybe Nancy and Steve used to do, driving to school, sitting in his car, doing this stuff. And she just immediately would think that they're romantically involved. So maybe she kind of feels threatened or awkward just because she's, his ex. But they're still... talking still because of this interdimensional thing that they're fighting.
Yeah. And I was gonna say too, because I remember there's the one scene where I think they're in the library researching like Victor Creel, and Robin's like, I just want to let you know, Nance, there's absolutely nothing going on romantically between me and Steve-O or something like that. Like she clarifies.
Iconic.
And I think it's fun. And I think part of it is that she might be kind of jealous of Robin and her closeness to Steve. But maybe another part of it is, again, Robin's kind of different. Maybe she just thinks she's annoying. She could just think she's kind of annoying, and she's like, this girl's kind of weird.
Nancy's also kind of like, she's a solo girl. Like she wants to when she has something in her mind, she's gonna go do it. And if no one's gonna help her a certain
Yeah.
way or do it the way she wants, it's like when you're baking a cake or something,
Yes.
and someone wants to help you and they ask to crack the egg, and then you get kind of annoyed because you're doing everything else, and you don't want to let them crack the egg. You don't want to let that little bit of power up almost.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I know what you're saying because I
And
feel
it's
like
kind of
she's
Nancy's
like
character.
she's like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I feel like maybe it's not that she wants to give up power. Maybe it's like she thinks that other people might do it wrong.
Yeah.
They might not do it as well as her, and I think that also comes into with Robin's character a little. Even though I think Robin is the one who ends up like finding the stuff about.
She is because she mentions a certain type of newspaper that Nancy should look at, and Nancy says, well, that's just full of fake conspiracies. No one's gonna believe that stuff. It's not a reputable newspaper. And then Robin says, well, I think it is a reputable newspaper because what other newspaper's gonna actually put a piece out about this kind of?
Because every other newspaper's like, oh, you got a story about ghosts or some weird demons. Well, that's obviously not real. We're not gonna report that. She says. Another thing I loved. I loved the establishment of Robin as someone who like might be a little bit of a conspiracy theorist.
I love that.
Who might be kind of like into the supernatural and the paranormal and like.
She definitely has theories about how the Titanic went down and what happened with that. She definitely would go on a 3-hour rant about that.
I mean, even if this wasn't an interest of hers originally, especially after season 3, you're kidding me. After season 3, if I was Robin, I would become Murray 2.0. I'm like living in a bunker. I have a shotgun trained on the door at all times.
That's a duo I want to see.
Oh my god, Murray and Robin would be so funny.
That'd be so good.
We need to see them.
We need to see them. Because she's also so blunt with Steve about his romantic life too, even though she doesn't have hers figured out either. But her and Murray would be a duo in that sense. Listen,
I feel like Murray and Robin, gay lesbian solidarity. That's the vibe.
Yes, that's so real. That is so real. Because
exactly.
Not trying to change the topic, but in season 3 with Murray and Alexi, was there a little something more going on there?
I honestly, I would have to rewatch it. And honestly, I don't know if Murray is gay. I honestly don't think he is. I just think I just think that'd make for a really funny dynamic.
Idea. It would be a great dynamic. It would be a fun
dynamic. I'm not saying anything for certain.
Yeah, I felt like there was a little something.
Me on that.
After rewatching it, I felt like there was, but that's just me, and I do like to headcanon like characters. So sometimes I'll think more into characters or interactions than probably is necessary or probably was even intended.
That's
but
literally the entirety of the internet.
That is so real.
Like, listen, at least the characters. I know there's some people in fandoms that'll like be headcanoning or like pairing characters together that literally have not interacted once.
Yeah,
people be out there like shipping characters from completely different franchises.
Yeah. Well, that's my sister and we argue about this every time. I like the Steve and Eddie. We've talked about this. I like the Steve and Eddie headcanon. The steady headcanon. But the thing is, I know that it's not actually a thing, but I like to think about it and I like to do that. But my sister gets so mad at me because she always says that they had no interactions on screen. But I don't think that's true.
They had so many interactions on screen. That was such a big part of season 4.
And they got to know each other. And even if they didn't necessarily get to know each other, it's the whole idea of Stranger Things and all these characters' relationships is the trauma bond. Let's be completely honest. All of these characters are
the trauma bond is the glue that holds them all together.
It is. And I was actually disappointed. Eddie's death scene ripped my heart out of my chest because I knew it was probably coming, and then the minute it did, I wanted to bawl my eyes out.
Yeah,
but
we can talk about that more when we get to Eddie, because I have
things to say about Eddie.
Oh yeah, but
I wish we saw Steve's reaction because Gaten Matarazzo killed that performance.
Bro put his heart and soul into that.
Did, and it wrecked me even more than the idea of Eddie dying was Dustin's reaction.
Yeah.
And I think I would have really liked to see Steve's reaction to Dustin being devastated about this too. Not just necessarily just Eddie dying, but just coming back to see Dustin sobbing.
Some Steve big brother moment.
Exactly. I would have loved to see that. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some flashbacks and we'll get some of those moments, or we get to hear what Steve's side of it was, because at the end of the season, at the end of the episode, he's just kind of standing there like nothing happened. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, he's gone through so much of this, he just knows how to cope with it at this point.
He's probably just numb.
He's just numb to it. Yeah, that's so valid. But we can talk about that another time.
I was gonna say, what else have we not talked about? I mean, we talked about when they went to well, we haven't, but I was gonna say we can talk about when they went to the asylum.
Oh,
That
with
was
the outfits.
such a fun scene. The outfits
I
were
love
so
that.
funny. I loved the scene where they're like running and like Robin takes the
Yes.
shoes off.
I love that. I love that whole chase scene because she I think it was Robin who starts running first, and
No,
then
it was Nancy who
was
starts
it
running
Nancy?
first. Robin's like, "Oh my god, what are we gonna do?" And Nancy's just like, "Follow my lead." They just take off.
Yeah,
Listen,
I
if
love
there's
that.
one thing about Nancy Wheeler, it's that at any given moment she is ready to commit a crime.
Oh, she
is ready to flee from law enforcement.
She will never admit it, but she is ready for that.
Ready for that all the time, and I love her for that.
No one backs Nancy into a corner.
No one backs Nancy into a corner. That is so real.
Love
but
a good
I was gonna
80s
say
reference.
that was a really good scene.
That was a great that whole idea. Victor Creel was such, I feel like, an underrated part of season 4. It was so creepy but so interesting because you get this whole backstory, and the fact that this man literally cut his eyes out and blamed everything, blamed him, I think, himself really for everything that happened, and he doesn't know any of this stuff with his son as one, Vecna, all like Henry being all these people, and he's just sitting here in this asylum and everyone's so scared of him, but he actually, I don't think, was that bad of a guy. He like seemed down to
No,
earth.
he was just, pretty understandably traumatized and messed up.
As he would be. But everyone was talking, I think, about how crazy he was, but he obviously he was messed up about some of the stuff, but he talked pretty normally to them as far as I remember.
You know what?
Maybe it's because they were the first persons to actually listen to him.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, because they were like taking him seriously. But I was gonna say the parallels between Victor and Eddie, though. Everyone thinks they're responsible for murders they didn't commit. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh, you do.
Sorry,
that just clicked in my brain.
I just realized that too, because I mean, Victor, he's blamed for like murdering his family.
Yeah,
Eddie was blamed for murders,
literally,
of everyone else.
Oh my goodness!
Which I always say the kind
and Henry's actually responsible for both of those.
Yeah, But I was just say the tragic thing about Eddie is that he hadn't run and had been like arrested. They would have realized pretty soon that it wasn't him because people would keep dying even if he was in jail.
That's true. They would know, but at the same time, they might have still found a way to blame him with all the D&D stuff. Because if they were like, saying, he's the devil,"
it's the entire D&D party that's killing these people. He's just the headmaster.
He's using his magic and Satan to help him. So he's sitting in the
devil's power.
He's doing nothing in this jail cell, but he's definitely using the devil to kill these other people. Yeah. Like, no.
I just got the funniest image of like that man is a killer, and it's just Eddie in a jail cell board and he's like playing electric guitar.
Exactly. Like, I just think it's so ridiculous to me to think about these poor guys on the D&D group who are just a bunch of nerds just trying to have fun.
Of, like, nerds who don't fit in anywhere else, who Eddie was like, don't fit in anywhere else. Come on, guys, let's play Dungeons and Dragons.
They're just a bunch of goofy guys, and they get blamed for this just because they play a game.
Because they're different. Because it was based off of an actual case. There was an actual case where this happened. I forget the name, but there was a case where I think some kids were killed or went missing or something.
Interesting.
And the people that were scapegoated were some people that played D&D. And I think a few of them had like some mental health issues and stuff. I don't remember exactly. It was like the something 4. It was the something 4. That was what Eddie's story was based off of.
Oh.
But
it doesn't surprise me because during that time too, or at least before, like I feel like there was a lot of problems with like rock music and stuff like that too.
Well, I was about to interrupt you.
You go.
Because I was gonna say, because
you know more about it than I do.
No, I was just gonna say, well, absolutely, it was. I mean, rock and roll we consider that to be synonymous with American culture. But it was considered like, the devil's music. Yeah. The devil's music was a catch-all for any predominant type of popular music. That was a lot of the time, it wasn't non-white. Jazz was the devil's music.
Yeah.
Jazz was the devil's music.
I feel like anyone just blames anything at this point. Like, especially people, especially white people. If it is not the way they want to see it, they immediately go for something and say, well, that's not normal, so that's terrible, and that's the devil. No, it's not. It's really not.
It's not. Well, because that happened with jazz, that happened with rock and roll, that happened with heavy metal. Basically, any kind of music form you can think of that fell outside of like There's a video I watched from the Weird History channel about, I think it was Twisted Sister and how they outclassed Congress, because some people were trying to sue like Twisted Sister or something for like, they're not, it was some people were fighting or arguing against, it's like, oh, they're immoral or something.
Interesting.
And it was like, we don't want our kids seeing this kind of music or something. And they ended up winning the case, and the only thing that resulted was that you had to put like explicit content warnings on like albums if they swore a lot and like said inappropriate stuff.
I mean,
I'm not describing it well. It's an interesting video.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Anyway,
it's sad to me. Going like back to Eddie, like
is.
the whole plot is so sad. And he died sacrificing himself for this whole town and for everyone who mistreated him. But no one will ever know.
No, everyone just thinks he's still a serial killer.
Yeah. Exactly. I would love to see his uncle looped into some of it next season. I think that'd be really interesting, but I'm not sure. Because like you've pointed out before, Dustin's saying, he died saving this town or fighting for this town. Yeah. What was he fighting?
He was trying to pull the earth back together.
He was trying to
steadying
stop the
tectonic plates with his bare hands.
He was trying to stop the friction between the tectonic plates.
Mm-hmm. I was just he's such an interesting character, because he always sort of, I think, considered himself a coward because he always ran away from conflict. But in my mind,
he's had such a hard life.
I was gonna say, he's had such a hard life, and in my mind, at least, he was very brave. Like, dude, can you imagine how difficult it was for him to be like the one like metalhead alternative like D&D playing kid in rural Hawkins, Indiana in 1986?
Exactly. And also being held back as much as he was, because he was older than everyone too.
Yeah.
He is such a diverse character in that sense, and no one gives him the credit. I feel like either people love Eddie or hated Eddie. And I think that just kind of shows the different sides of the D&D fandom. Not D&D. Wow, I'm thinking about D&D now.
Fandom.
The D&D fandom.
I mean, there is a D&D fandom.
There is, which is also related to the Stranger Things fandom. But I love Eddie's character for that. And just he's such a kind character, and you don't see that side of him, or people in Hawkins don't see that side of him. But then us as like the people watching the show, we see this whole new character come out who really cares about Dustin and cares about these kids, because he took them and he's taking in other people who were mistreated in high school and were seen as weird.
Because I feel like the first time we see him enters to reading about like the devil in America, to I Was a Teenage Werewolf by the Cramps. Fantastic song choice. That was incredible. Worked so well. And I feel like he has this sort of larger than life facade he puts on. Like everyone's like, oh, Eddie the freak, Eddie the weird kid. So he kind of plays that up a little.
He definitely does.
Kind of goes a little more over the top than he would, because you can see his personality is obviously a little more toned down, a little more real when he's like by himself outside of the school environment.
Yeah.
And
I remember,
what was I completely lost my train of thought.
You can think about it. I have a
go
thing.
ahead.
There was this one part at the beginning of the episode right before Eddie was introduced in the cafeteria. It was Mike and Dustin were talking about Lucas's basketball game or something.
Yes.
And trying to figure out like who was gonna take
they're trying to be like, maybe we
place.
can ask Eddie to reschedule. It's like, no way, he's been planning this for so long.
Yeah, and they kind of make it out to be maybe he's kind of like an intimidating guy, but then he really isn't. And the fact that he did take these kids in, but he's putting that facade on, because like when we do meet his character at first, he does that classic like where he does
like
the horns,
devil horns,
and then he like
stands on a table, has like a whole speech.
Exactly. And he's really just this guy trying to get by in life. And I mean, with the whole Chrissy situation, he really just tried to help her. That's all he was trying to do.
Was he trying to sell her drugs and make a profit? Yes, but he listened to her. He was going to try to help.
He tried to understand what she was going through and listen to her when other people probably wouldn't. And he also wasn't going to go blabbing to people. He was just like, oh, you need this because you're struggling with this? I got you.
Works for me, man. I'll give you the good stuff.
And the fact that it's in his lunchbox, like the weed he was trying to sell was in his lunchbox. It was
so funny. What was it, like a specific themed lunchbox?
I think it might have been, or maybe it was just a metal lunchbox, but he had it with him in the cafeteria.
It was so
scene
funny. I saw someone make a joke about it being like, the fact that he keeps it in his lunchbox is so funny. Bro has like a peanut butter sandwich, some like Pringles, and like a Twinkie and then just a bag of weed next to all
Yeah.
of that.
He's such an interesting character. Oh my goodness.
So silly.
He's
so
just a silly guy.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
a silly Billy, if you will.
Yes, exactly. And I just we literally have written down intimidating Arrow, now just a silly goofy guy.
He is just a silly goofy guy.
I love that people call it when he like freaks out and he's like kind of yelling. You know, on the boat when everyone else jumps in, he's like and he's like, ah,
and now
like,
I gotta
stop.
jump
And now
in
I gotta
after
jump into this lake.
because everyone just follows.
I saw someone call them like his little tantrums once, and I was like, that is really funny, and I love it a lot.
It's so it's because poor guy's thrown into this whole situation.
He's tossed in head first. Robin at least had kind of like a gradual introduction before, I guess, she was kidnapped by Russians.
Exactly, but at the same time, she also wasn't being blamed for murder.
No,
so like he has this whole other layer to his story that's like
Robin
crazy.
Robin had the chance that if she wanted to be like, nope, you know what? I'm not worrying about this. I'm just gonna work at my ice cream job. I'm gonna get that bag. You guys have fun. Yeah. Eddie wasn't given a choice. He was basically picked up and tossed into the deep end. It's like, learn how to swim, kid. And he was like, oh my God, what's going on? This is so crazy.
He didn't even have his floaties with him, guys.
He didn't even have his floaties.
Give the guy a break.
Robin was like given a pool noodle and then tossed into the deep end. And then Eddie was like given a pair of concrete shoes and heaved from the diving board into the deep end.
He was shoved off.
Oh my goodness. Like they tied weights to him and then pushed him in.
They really did. Yeah. They really did. And I think that's what kind of makes his whole story just so heartbreaking. And the fact that I think the reason he kind of did what he did with the bats and biked off, and I think we talked about it before briefly, was just this idea. I think he knew that he had no chance.
He had nothing left back in Hawkins.
He didn't.
As we have written down.
He didn't, and that's the sad part because there's all these people blaming him for his death, and even the one guy who was Chrissy's boyfriend, I can't remember his name.
I can't even remember his name.
I don't like to think about him.
Jerk.
He makes me so mad. I don't even try to think about him.
His name wasn't Max because we already have a character.
It was something really like snobby.
It was some preppy 80s.
It really was
jock name.
It really was
like Josh or Brent.
He didn't die at the end? He also died. He burns to life. I wonder what he thinks like right before that's when he sees this happening and Max is floating.
Max like because he was with Lucas and Max when Max was floating in the air, and that's why Lucas wasn't able to get to Max directly.
Right, because he was fighting him.
Oh. And then the rift opened up and he kind of fell into it and died.
Yeah. The thing is that's sad about that is the idea that he probably thought that Eddie was still behind all of that.
I'm sorry. Can you imagine just seeing like this like demonic rift open up in the floor, and your first thought being like, "Oh, it's that D&D player who likes
that
Black
Eddie
Sabbath. It's that guy who likes Judas Priest. He's the one behind this.
He's the one
with his
who's
dark
doing
magics."
This. My goodness, this poor guy is just trying to exist in this world.
I know. But, as much as I hate his death, I do understand because he knew how much was riding on this.
Yeah,
there was no other way that I guess he could have caused the diversion. I forget. Was it just an unfortunate like circumstance that caused him, or he actively stayed behind in order to keep the bats away so the plan would work?
Yeah,
he knew what he was risking.
Something I can't remember. Something was happening, and he didn't want Dustin to get hurt, so he was telling Dustin to get back up. I think he told him to leave, and then he
cut the rope.
Yeah, he cut the rope. He broke it, and then he got on the bike and was biking away to try to distract them so they wouldn't go after Dustin. And to like ruin the plan because then they all would have gone back to the hive, like to the house, to the quote unquote hive mind
where like Nancy, Steve, and Robin were trying to like where Nancy was like Terminatoring it up in there.
Exactly. And I think he took that upon himself, kind of realizing, and he didn't want to run. That was a big thing of that was a big part of his character. He didn't want to run anymore.
He didn't want to run this time. It's like, oh, King, you should have just run.
You should have just run. It's just so sad though, because if he would have gone back, I don't think no one would have believed them, and they all would have thought that they did it to Max and that they did all this stuff to these people. Even if they could tell them, hey, Vecna and this crazy thing was doing this, they'd be like, well, you D&D kids, you summoned this.
You would have hoped that as soon as ash starts raining from the sky, they would have realized that something weird and supernatural is going on here. But again, if they already think that Eddie's behind this, it's like some sort of demonic ritual, they might double down and be like, oh, he killed them, now he's opened a portal to the underworld.
That's the devil right there.
Yeah.
It's Satan himself.
He's a servant of evil.
It's so bad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's no way
That
out for
poor
him.
guy.
And again, we have talked about like the cast the bloody-handed theory, which would be cool. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Stranger Things is good about if a character dies on screen, they're staying dead. You know
exactly, and it's more viable that Steve would that it would be Steve that
Steve would have
be
some sort of strange ability because
exactly
he got bit by the bats and survived.
Yeah. The thing is, we saw Eddie die, but I guess we didn't see his body. So if they did do something after, like necessarily, like they didn't show it laying there like afterwards. There could be potential. They could have that loophole with like the whole Brenner situation, but I don't think
Brenner was still alive. If Eddie were to come back, they're supernatural
to be
all the way. Some sort of like resurrection or reanimation is at play here.
I don't think they will. No. And I think if they did, it wouldn't necessarily. It would have to be done very well.
It would be hard to pull off in a way that like doesn't feel like fan service and feels like it actually works with the story. I think.
I would like to hear them mention Eddie and mention Eddie's character and his story in season 5 not just drop his character off. Like when after Bob died, they still had Joyce. They had the picture of him still up on the wall. Joyce still had flashbacks of him and had moments where she thought of him. Like they did that.
Bob just wasn't completely forgotten. I hope they would do the same with Eddie. Like,
exactly, because it's not fair. It's not fair to the character or that whole, because he was such a big part of it and such a big plot point. Why just kill him off and then never acknowledge him again after that? And there's no way Dustin would actually viably let that happen either.
No, absolutely not.
Even Steve probably wouldn't, because they started to finally get along at the end of that. So it's like,
oh my god, you know what I just remembered? Sorry, what? I was just gonna say, because Eddie gave Steve his jean vest. I wonder if one of the kids still has his jean vest. What if Dustin starts like wearing his jean vest as like a tribute? That would be so nice, wouldn't it? That would be so cool. I don't know if he has. I don't remember if Eddie was wearing it when he died though.
I can't remember. I'll search up pictures.
We'll have to search up.
I'll search up
but
pictures.
Yeah, I think Eddie was such an incredible character, and I don't think we're gonna see him again. But he was sort of the first introduction to sort of like the metalhead world, and I think. Oh, sorry, I got distracted because my mom just texted me. Chrissy's boyfriend's name was Jason.
Jason.
Ugh, Jason. Jason. What do you think is that's like the most frat boy name ever? No, that's a lie. The most frat boy name ever is like Chatterick. Or like
I guess so. Or what? Chad. I once watched a show with a character named Shad. Like SH.
Oh
Shad.
My god.
Yeah.
What show was that? That's terrible.
It was a reality dating show. My guilty pleasure is watching reality dating TV shows to make fun of them.
No, okay, I stand by it. Watching things just make fun of them is so real. I want to start watching Ghost of Adventures again, just to make fun of how over the top it is. Because those guys,
I can't tell
they'll hear like a little whisper, and they'll be like, "Oh my god!"
You can look through other photos.
Did you hear that?
It looked like he was wearing
like the military jacket.
The military vest, but I don't think he was wearing his, because Steve was wearing it. He gave it to Steve to cover up.
For your modesty, dude.
So I wonder if I can't remember if Steve was wearing it in the final battle.
These photos are all so low quality.
I know they are.
Really giving us good stuff to work with here, Google. Let's see.
Thank you, Safari. No, that scene wrecked me. And I think the reason it did wreck me, I don't think he is. I think the part that wrecked me the most, like I said, was Dustin's reaction. To it. That was rough. Heart-wrenching. Absolutely heart-wrenching. Done so well, though. And I like the tribute they do at the end, too, when Dustin gives him the necklace back. So, doesn't he give the uncle his necklace?
He does. Okay, with, like, his guitar pick on it.
Yes. And so, also, I feel like that's a good representation, at least to the uncle, to know I was with him, because Eddie wouldn't just give that to him.
Yeah, no.
You know, it makes sense that Dustin probably took it off of him.
Oh, that's even sadder.
As in evidence to like give to uncle to let him know, hey, I was with him.
Oh my god. You know what? Just to give him something to remember by, because they didn't have a body to bury. His uncle didn't have a body to bury.
That's the only
his other body than that was in the upside down.
His room like back home is the only remembrance of Eddie they have. Yeah. His guitars, his music, his posters, his drugs.
That's it. My parents really liked the part where Rob was like, when Nancy was getting infected, Rob was like, we need music. What do you have? Like, Blondie, Bowie, David Bowie, the Beatles music. And he's like holding up tape of Iron Maiden. He's like, this is music.
It's a great scene.
That was fun. That was so fun.
That's a great dynamic between the two of them.
I know.
I wish we could have seen more Robin and Eddie. I think they played off each other well, even
they're-
though they were more in the
yes.
group settings.
Because they're both kind of the outside characters. They're both
They
kind
are.
of the weirdos.
That were introduced later into it, that weren't from the first season, that
Yup.
saw it start. They saw the more intense things when they came along.
They were in the newest parts of the group. I think they would have gotten along. So
I know, they would have been such good friends. I would have liked to see how everyone's relationship with Eddie would have continued.
It would have been so fun.
It would have been.
I feel like Nancy does Nancy ever actually interact with Eddie?
She does later on, but I don't think she's not with them at first because it was Dustin, Steve, and Robin who initially find Eddie, but she gets looped in later on.
Yes, because I was gonna say I feel like Nancy would either like hate Eddie or they would get along weirdly well.
Yeah,
they would get along like shockingly.
I feel like she wouldn't like him. Like it would be a Robin situation where Nancy
Yeah.
wouldn't want to like him, but then she would start liking him.
Yeah,
I saw
she'd
this
be like,
one.
okay, fine, you're not terrible or whatever.
Yeah, like whatever. But then she really does like him.
Yeah.
I saw this one joke where it said that Eddie and Steve give off such divorced parent energy with Dustin,
Yeah.
like trading him off on weekends. Like, oh,
Like it's your turn to watch Dustin.
you can have him
Steve.
now. They give such that energy. Like just the
yeah.
scene when they first find Eddie and Steve has his hands on his hips and he's like looking at him. It's so great.
And like, what is the one scene where I think Dustin is like calling Steve, and Dustin's like, "You're just jealous. I have another older male friend." And Steve's like, "Oh, don't say it like that.
Don't say
That's
it like
weird.
That.
Don't ew,
No.
don't say it like that."
No, I love them.
This
They're
is
so good
this
though.
this is fantastic. What I was gonna say,
They're such great characters.
I know. I was gonna say, oh, the one thing we forgot to talk about with Robin and Vicky. Robin and
Yes.
Vicky. I hope we get to see more of Vicky's
too.
character developed, because we don't really see much of her.
No,
We just
don't.
kind of see some flashes. We see a bit of her at the end. We see that she sort of has some common ground with Robin.
Yeah.
Where she's like, sometimes it just feels like my like mouth is a train that's like running or something. It's like they just kind of ramble on and on, which that's what I do. But
Yeah, same. I think we definitely get a hint though that she isn't straight because she obviously wasn't happy with the guy she was with, and there's definitely the chemistry enough there. So I hope
I
they
feel like they would
play
get,
along with it.
I feel like they. Yeah, exactly.
I think they should try to continue with the character and just see where it goes.
That would I really am interested to see where that goes.
And if she gets looped into it,
Yes.
does she get looped into it? Because Stranger Things is infamous for bringing in new characters.
Yes.
Each season, but the thing is, most characters they bring in end up dying. So let's see if
maybe we don't want her looped in.
yeah, maybe we don't want her looped in.
No.
But there's theories that Robin might die because Maya Hawke has requested that Robin dies.
No, Maya
And I don't
Hawke,
want her to.
no.
I would love to see, like we talked about before in Nancy's episode, I would love to see Nancy choose Robin over a romantic thing, like because I feel
Like
like
girl best
Robin
friend.
gives very much Barb energy,
Yes.
and I think that it would
yes.
be cool to see her pick.
Because you
Robin.
said that would make things come full circle.
Yeah,
Because in season 1, Nancy chose Steve over Barb, and that resulted in Barb dying. So it would make things kind of come full circle and be sort of fulfilling for Nancy to choose her like female friend over a romantic partner.
exactly.
Or Steve again, maybe. Sorry,
something.
Steve, we love you. I don't think you should get back with
Yeah,
Nancy.
I don't think you should get
just
back
just in
with
case
Nancy.
the actual Steve Harrington is listening from 1985.
Steve
Calm
Har-
down.
Harrington, if you're listening to this, marry me.
Steve Harrington, if you're listening to this, you're doing great.
We love you.
Lift your head, King. Your crown is falling. But
Yes.
also, you gotta calm down and figure out who you are outside of romantic relationships.
Yeah, you
That's my advice
definitely-
to you from the future.
You need to not get back with Nancy. You
Mhm.
need to go maybe move out of Hawkins
Yes.
and go on a little mental health journey.
Go on a nice road trip with Robin across the country.
Yes,
That would solve half of your problems
Exactly.
right there.
it really would. It really would, and I would love to see it happen.
Mhm.
Love Robin.
Exactly.
I love Eddie. I love Steve. I love all these
such good
characters.
characters. All
Such
such
good
good characters.
characters.
As I say, and I think the choice to talk about both Robin and Eddie today was the good one, because I mean, obviously we love both these characters, but unlike Steve and Nancy, they haven't been around for all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So we don't really have enough to talk about them.
There's not
on
as
their
much of a
own.
character arc. They kind of come in with a good, solid character.
Yeah.
But with Nancy and Steve, you see the side of them where
Yes.
they're young and naive, and they
Yeah.
have a completely different personality or way of holding themselves than they do later on in the series.
Yeah, I feel like we get a little bit of that in Robin with just we see how
Yeah.
she is with people she doesn't know as well that are like her coworkers. Then we see how she acts with like her friends and people she's gotten a little closer with because she's gotten drawn into all this crazy stuff. But yeah, this is probably what we'll do in the future too for other characters we want to talk about. But again, don't have enough to like constitute their own episode. Like, maybe we could do like the side character.
We could do side characters, and then maybe
talk
we
about
could do
like Erica.
Yeah. We could do an original party episode too about just the kids.
Oh yes, we could because we haven't talked about the kids originally in depth.
Yeah, maybe
we've just been talking about our favorites.
Exactly. If you guys go and follow the Instagram, which you definitely should, Peculiar Happenings _ podcast. You should go follow it, and maybe we'll post some polls or something to see what people are interested in seeing next. Especially because over winter break we'll have time to plan for next semester.
Oh, so much brainstorming is gonna happen.
So much brainstorming. So much content.
I want to do an episode on the adults. I know. I want to talk about we got to do the Justice. We got to talk about Joyce. We got to talk about Hopper. Got to talk about Murray. Maybe if we have time, we could also talk about like Bob. We could also Bob. We could also talk about who else? We could talk about Miss Wheeler. We could talk about Miss Wheeler.
Miss Wheeler. I think the parents, like the other parents,
we could
who
do
were
an
involved
episode
are
on the
gonna come in.
parents. We could do an episode on them.
I think they're gonna have more involvement later on.
Yeah.
We can talk about that next time.
Yeah. But yeah, I was gonna say I think that would be really cool. We could also do an episode. Maybe we could do an episode talking about like Brenner. Because I know one debate that me and my dad have had sometimes is if he actually cared about like the kids in the lab or not.
That's valid.
Like if he genuinely cared for them, or if he just cared about what they could do for him. Like
yeah,
how
I
they
think
could
he
benefit him.
Yeah, it's complicated. I was gonna answer that question, then realized we don't have time for that. We'll go on a whole other
time
hour
for
rant.
another episode. That's
exactly
for another episode.
Exactly. So I think we'll have some fun content, and obviously we're gonna have to go on a hiatus after next week for a little bit,
because that's winter break for us. A whole month without any peculiar happenings. I'm sure all 5 of you are so sad.
I know, but we do have Radiothon tomorrow, so you should tune in at 3 on
both. It's being broadcast on both.
Oh, it's being broadcast.
It's on WCVF, which is 88.9, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Just look it up online. And it's also simultaneously being broadcast on WDVL.
Yes.
Which is, if you're listening to us right now, good news. You found WDVL.
Yeah, you know where to go.
And it's all being recorded. So if you don't make it, there should be an episode we're going to put. That one's going to be a fun little lighthearted one. We're going to see like what Stranger Things character we are. We're going to take some quizzes. We're going to do some trivia stuff maybe if we can find some stuff.
It'll be fun. It'll be a little less planned, of analyzing Stranger Things and more of let's see how much we know about Stranger Things on other quizzes and see what characters our personalities match.
Yeah,
it's just some fun times, it's Radiothon. Why not have a fun episode?
It's gonna be lighthearted. It's gonna be fun too because we haven't done anything on WCBF before.
Yeah, we haven't.
So that's gonna be fun trying to figure out. It's like, okay, time to do a promo or something, and the mics go off, and then I can click it. It's like, is it working? Yes.
Slay. We're gonna do so good. We're gonna do so good.
We're gonna do great. Great. All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode of Peculiar Happenings. If you have been listening, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you. We have sent a Demogorgon gift wrapped with a bow to each of your houses.
Yes, we have. Just be careful. They kind of bite.
Yeah, let's just feed them your cat and they'll be fine.
Yeah, feed them your cat, and 3 Musketeer bars, and everything will be fine.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that does it for. I think I already said that does it for this week's episode. Anyway, if you can join us on Radiothon tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST, I believe 12 p.m. Pacific time,
something like that.
I'm only saying this for Mo, who I hope is listening right now, because if not, I'm just talking to no one.
We love you, Mo.
We love you, Mo. Yeah, and that's it. We should have the Nancy news report should be out. It should be out already, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully.
All right. Thank you for listening.
Adios, muchachos.
Bye.